Welcome back to We Lead Anyway. I'm Noelle, senior leader, career coach, and host of the weekly podcast, We Lead Anyway. Hey, did you know that I have a YouTube channel that's just taking off? I have about, a handful of subscribers, but you can catch the podcast there and listen, or you can watch videos where I break down more foolery. So if you want to hang out with me, some more antics, go give it some love. YouTube, We Lead Anyway. Today, I want to talk about something that people love to encourage in theory, but rarely support in practice. Maybe they don't even know how to support it, actually. But it's advocating for yourself, calling out bad behavior and the risk that comes along with doing both. Now, myself, a woman of color who was queer of a certain age, you think, Noelle, you have a lot of stuff to advocate for, okay? But I want to talk about general advocacy. It doesn't have to be from a marginalized group. Because when you speak up, there is a risk. You are suddenly on Front Street. There's no hiding. You're rather exposed. It's a very vulnerable but courageous place to be. Often you have no allies. It's just you and your feelings. It's just you and the impact. You and the damage. I was born and raised in Utah. And most of the time, I was the only person of color in any room. Pick a room, any room. And that does something to you. Not to be overly dramatic, but it does shape you. You learn how to, survive socially. You learn how to be pleasant and agreeable. You learn how to read people fast, smooth things over before they become a problem. I was also born and raised one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And although I don't practice that religion now, that further alienated me. I didn't celebrate. I didn't associate as much with the other kids. So I got very good at being amiable. I got very good at tolerating things I shouldn't have had to, jeering and bullying and such. And for a long time, I told myself, this is fine. It's fine. I can handle it. I'm resilient. I am strong. And all of that is true. But here's the part that took me a while to really internalize. Just because a person can handle the way someone talks to them or treats them doesn't mean that the behavior is not harmful. And it doesn't mean that we should. Endurance, survival, doesn't equal consent. And as I got older, my standard of respect for myself changed. And with that came a decision. And I decided I'm not going to contort myself to make bad behavior easier for people to keep doing, not to me and not to anybody else. That does not mean that speaking up is not risky. It's not easy. You're not rewarded. And even though people say, oh, there's no consequence, there's no retaliation. Yes, there is. Advocating for yourself can cost you comfort. It costs you your reputation as being easy and breezy and cool. It can cost you proximity to power. And sometimes it costs you relationships that only worked when you stayed quiet, when you smiled and nodded, when you agreed. But silence, for me specifically, silence as a woman, as a Black woman, as a queer person, silence as a leader, that costs more. So if you're thinking, okay, Noelle, well, after all that, I ain't saying shit to anybody. How do I do this without actually blowing everything up? Well, here are 3 steps that I rely on. These are the 3 steps that matter. First, you get clear before you get loud. Before you address anything, name for yourself what crossed the line and why. I'm not talking about how it made you feel, but what boundary or value or principle was violated. Clarity keeps you grounded when emotions are high. Second, describe the behavior, not the person. When you speak up, you focus on what was said or done and the impact it had, not the person's character. In leadership, I always say you have to separate the person from the problem. In artistry, they talk about separating the artist from the artistry. Well, I can't do that. Nicki Minaj can suck it. So don't focus on their character, not their intent. Behavior plus impact keeps the conversation anchored in reality, and it makes it harder to dismiss you as overreacting or being too sensitive. And then third, decide what your line is before you speak. Know what you will and won't tolerate going forward. Advocacy is not just about naming harm. It's about setting a standard for you, for the culture, the environment that you're in, for the people around you. And then if the behavior continues, you already know what your next move is. And that's where your power comes from. So calling out bad behavior is not about being difficult. Even though sometimes you have to stand on business, people will make you feel like you are the problem. That's not what it's about. It is about refusing to normalize harm just because you learn how to survive it and just because nobody else has the courage to say anything. Now, I do want to call one thing out. Sometimes people don't say something not because they're not brave, it's because they really don't feel like they have a voice or they feel like they're not in the position to do so. Maybe they have conflict in that department. Maybe they have conflict with the person who said it, their peer or their leader or someone in a cross-functional area. That is a horrible situation to be in because then you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I've always handled it, I'll just handle it. I want you to hear this. You should not have to. And the fact that you do doesn't make it okay. This emotional labor that we, especially as a marginalized group of people, are expected to give for free on the days where we're just trying to survive, or we're just trying to get through the workplace. People don't understand what it's like to be othered. Advocacy, it's risky. But self-abandonment is riskier. If you have a question or a topic you want me to talk about, please email me at noelleadsanyway@gmail.com. And if you want to talk coaching, visit leadwithnoelle.com. Go find me on YouTube at We Lead Anyway. And until next time, go take up space.